a movement to save the natural resources, or we call it the NSDA, Gerakan Nasional Penyelamatan Sumber Daya Alam, a multi-door approach led by the Anti-Corruption Commission, and together with 25 ministries and government agencies, plus civil society. So these are actually the underlying factors that we understood has also affected daily lives, and it's like drought, fire, floods, etc. Climate change are a multi-sector issue. It's not just a forestry sector. We fully understand that, and now I think later on I will also discuss. It is not the challenges that Ibu Nur and colleagues facing. It's not just a forestry and environment issues, but it's also across ministries. The problems faced are very complex. It's not just deforestation, it's overlapping of licensing, extractive-based industries, the weak coordination among central and local administration, and then last, what Claire said today was about peatland management, peatland exploitation. We have, what is the prerequisite of the RED for effective RED Plus implementation? One is the one map policy, participatory mapping. This is for mitigation and adaptation. Moratorium review, licensing of forests and peatland, conflict resolution, recognition of local and customary law, community rights, indigenous rights, acceleration of endorsement of forest area based on MK 45, which is the Constitutional Court decision. So what are the challenges and risks in the implementation of the climate?
And he's perhaps had a very nice job because he's been doing both advocacy and policy. A very interesting combination. With that, it's over to you for your reflection on what has been learned and your suggestions for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I had actually planned to be a little bit more modest, not speaking on behalf of global civil society, but only on behalf of Rainforest Foundation Norway. But we can see what the global civil society accepts of what I say. And thank you for a very generous introduction to Rainforest Foundation. Rainforest Foundation Norway has been working together with partners in Indonesia actually for almost 20 years. It's significant time. It's also worth to mention that we were one of the two proposers of giving birth to the idea that ended up as NICFI. So we have tried to follow this very closely, the development in Indonesia. Okay, so then what have we learned for these years? First, I think that we have learned that the world really needs Indonesia to solve the climate problem. Indonesia, because of the very serious deforestation and development of peat that you see there, is one of the biggest emitters in the world, and without dealing with this in Indonesia in a better way than we have been able to so far, solving the climate problem will be very difficult. And I also think that we have learned that this is, and well, some people knew this already, but it's important to remember that this is not only about climate, and it's maybe not mainly about climate either. It's a lot about people. And it's not about avoiding climate change in the future, it's about saving people's lives today. Especially this autumn, we have seen the very serious impacts of deforestation and especially the burning, and seen the human disaster that this really is. 500,000 people in Indonesia has had acute respiratory illnesses, and this is only the kind of immediate effect of the crisis going on. And I also think that what we also have learned, at least those of us who are not in Indonesia, that it's not only about avoiding a disaster, it's also a positive thing. It's about securing the rights and livelihoods of a lot of people. So it's a positive outcome here that we want to protect. 70 million people, more or less, are dependent on forests for their livelihoods in Indonesia, and protecting their livelihoods is absolutely essential. I think I will not be as detailed because, it will be some kind of more headlines on both of the things, good things that have happened, and also what should happen next. I think it's important to recognize that it has happened quite a lot in Indonesia the last years. First, I think that the fact that we have a government in Indonesia that actively,
where concrete actions and concrete decisions can be taken in the future to go to the next level. Thank you very much. With that, last but not least, the last speaker is Pa Darsono. He is the deputy of the Permanent Committee on Forest Sustainable Conservation and Climate of Kadin, the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce. Pa Darsono has also got a distinguished career in finance and investment banking, having had positions of relevance in a number of global institutions. Also in New York, but recently he has moved, well not that recently, from the Big Apple to the Big Durian, so he's back in Jakarta, where he's also gone from investment banking to conservation, and he's become the president director of RMU. You will explain what the acronym stands for. Which is basically one of the first and largest conservation concession in Indonesia. Is in central Kalimantan, 200 hectares of peatland forest that is basically trying to make an innovative business case to say that you can do good business and at the same time protect forest. So for that, we're going to hear from Pa Darsono his reflection in terms of how does the private sector comes into this, what have you learned from the past 5 years, and what you see for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's really hard to be the last one in these panels when a lot of the things have been said. But while Abra mentioned that the Aman is very heavily involved in the LOI process, I think private sectors are not as involved as a civil society in this matter. I mean, for my personal company capacity, yes, we are involved. I'm aware of it. But I think if one true reflection to look back 5 years ago from the private sectors, you've been hearing a lot of comment that when we signed the LOIs, like, this is crazy. Why would we want to? This is the word that some of the members would say, sell our soul for $1 billion. Basically, we're not going to develop anything anymore. There will be no palm oil as a strategic commodity. There's no pulp and paper. All of that issue come up. So at that time, I was probably one of the few that are sort of like defending the LOI. Because I said, sometimes you look at things, is it half glass full or half glass empty? I am a very optimistic person. I said that, you have to look at this as half glass full. But is it because why? Because in the LOI, there's actually a lot of things that the private sector would love to have. Mostly, it's about certainty of doing business, right? It's about certainty of doing business, and in the LOI, they mentioned about one map policy, what a dream we'll have as a private sector. Because every time, private sector who are in the land use sector will come, somebody else will claim the land, and Bupati will write another concession. This is a dream come true situation when you look at the LOI. There also was in the LOI, there's a database for degraded land where people would love to go. So I think people were skeptical 5 years ago, and then a lot of people are not convinced. But I think that's how things has to be done to transform. Sometimes transformation need sort of like a shocking stage, and you start realizing it, then you start doing it.
Faisal Parish, Global Environment Centre from Malaysia, working with ASEAN Secretariat, member states on peatlands, and also with RSPO on emission reduction. We're talking about a transition period of 9 months, but these 9 months are also the very key period because the next 9 months will also be the El Nino period, and it's predicted to get strengthened to June next year. And this, although maybe we are relaxed because the rains have come and the fires are out, really between February to June could be extremely vulnerable for a second round, and based on 97-98, even worse round of fires. So how can, in this transition period, measures be taken to make sure that we're not going to lose even more than we've lost in the last three months? And this is a critical time to be talking about looking at some immediate support for action and not just more planning and preparation purpose. There should be adequate allocation for action, otherwise we may lose what we want to gain. Thank you.
Questions or comments? There's a hand up. Daniel.
Daniel Modiaso from C4. We were consulted by both Indonesian and Norwegian government. My former boss is here, can testify that. I was a bit late when Perry mentioned described the LOI, but I didn't catch the very message, what is going to happen in the next phase. This must be phase 3 right now, right? So with the new kind of landscape of political situation in Indonesia, would that LOI in first or third phase will be altered somehow in the context of delivering the result? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Daniel. Any other comment or question? I don't see any hands, so I think the first question would be appropriate for Ibu Nur to answer. Fires and El Nino in the next 9 months, and then for the second question I'm going to go to Per.
Thank you. I think based on our renegotiation with Norway at the time, that the 9-month transition program, we really focus on the concrete action in the field. It's a small part for strengthening the capacity at the national level, especially related to MRV system at the DG of climate change. But the most of resources will be dedicated for concrete action in the field, and mostly for area where peatland are there, and the most fire-prone area with many local community live surrounding that area, so that we could have integrated activities involving communities with the focus on peatland area, also preventing the forest fire. There is a program also for conflict resolution for some areas that also affected by forest fire in 5 provinces. There are also activities on the law enforcement, and also engaging local government, because
for example, for indigenous peoples, we just have an estimations about the carbon storage in indigenous peoples' territory, 32.7 gigaton from forest and peatland. Who is in charge with that? Of course, from the indigenous peoples, we are in charge because it's their territory. But who is in charge in the government? The second, who is in charge to implement Constitutional Court ruling number 35? Who is in charge? Who is in charge to establish trust fund for indigenous people? Who is in charge? Who is in charge to develop benefit sharing from the whole we discussed here? I don't know. I think that's kind of question still hanging, and we have to answer that.